So are you going to record all this?
I think StreamYard is recording automatically.
Because it might just be the three of us.
It may be. So, okay. We'll have a chat.
Well, we do have 10 viewers. They might be bots, or maybe not. We'll never know.
We will never know. It's like it's interesting because I was just listening to this podcast about AI and how we will never know if they're conscious or not. You know, because at some point they'll get out of uncanny valley and they'll look like human, behave like human, be emotionally responsive like human, and they will claim that they're conscious, and we will never know. So, okay, we don't know if it's bots or not, but
Yes,
there.
true.
Hello, bots. We found the ghost in the machine.
The digital beings.
They're ghosts, yeah. So I hope somebody's out there watching while we're getting set up here. How many artists does it take to put in a light bulb? It takes 3. One to stand on the ladder and the other 2 to turn it.
Okay, I got another one for you. And by the way, one of those 3 is not even an artist. Or even 2. I don't know, Luke, if I may say so about yourself. I don't know how you judge yourself, but I couldn't call myself an artist. I wouldn't dare.
I could change the bulb.
By yourself, yes?
You guys are turning the ladder. I'm holding the bulb.
Okay, here, Dr. Bill, let's see. I've got another one for you. How many mice does it have to screw in the light bulb?
How many mice does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Yes.
I don't know. A lot of them because they're too short to reach it.
No, the correct answer is 2. But how the hell did they get in there?
Oh, I remember that joke. How'd they get in the light bulb?
You got this.
Beats me.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, I think we should begin.
Let's begin.
So, let's begin. Yes, the stage is set for you, Dr. Bill.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll just start talking and somebody will be out there listening. Hi, I'm Dr. Bill. And some of you might know me as a generative art OG. I've been making computer art since the 1970s. In the early days where you had to punch holes in cards and put them into decks and take your deck to the central computing facility and wait one day for a turnaround. In the beginning, there weren't very many output devices, so we used line printers and plotters. And that's sort of the beginning. All we had was, as a graphic primitive, was move pen XY or draw pen XY. And that's how I did some of my first plotter art. Hopefully soon we'll see some plotter art show up here on the screen. But I did pieces like Banana Cone, which was a based on an algorithm called linear interpolation. And I did some of the early pieces were random squares, where I did an array of squares and interpolated the outer box to the middle box. Here's Banana Cone coming up. This one is geese. In the beginning, we were developing the principles of generative art, controlled randomness, machine repetition, and algorithms. Those are the basis of generative art even today. This particular piece is a single image just in an array rotated by an algorithm. The algorithm changes the orientation of the birds and, of course, creates a surface pattern. So these were kind of the experiments we did in the early days. If my assistant will keep scrolling, I'll talk more about some other stuff. We started trying to create 3 dimensions a piece of paper and a pen is two-dimensional space, but we started writing algorithms that we could draw these menagerie of creatures on these curves like lysigeus, and then write equations that would orient them such that they were looking like they were moving on the curve, and then the scale factor would give the illusion of depth. I was teaching engineering graphics at the time, and we were developing equations for perspective. So during the day when I would lecture on engineering graphics, at night I'd be in the machine room. We had access to an old IBM 1800. I'd be writing algorithms with another grad student. We would apply like a perspective equation to looking down a cylinder covered with creatures. So we're trying again to see what our medium was capable of. So this is actually an article from 1976 that was published in Artist and Computer by Ruth Levitt. And these were some of the examples that were in the article. This is the concentric squares, the boxes, where the middle position box was determined by a random number, and then the number of iterations to the side were determined by a random number. And then the one here, organic illusion, started looking at this to see what was different in this medium that wasn't being done in another medium. Here we took I took a circle, put it in the middle of a tile, and then randomly connected it up with the sides, and the size of the tessellation matched its neighbor. But people, if you started showing this to other people, other artists, the response wasn't overwhelming. I had a lot of time as a pioneer pulling the arrows out of my back because people said you can't use a computer to make art. Art comes from nature, but I would argue a piece like this kind of has a natural element. It reminded me of pine cones or something from nature. So as a pioneer, I fought a lot of battles, not only about my art, but justifying the medium. So that was pretty much the early days. After I graduated from Michigan State in 1980, I moved on, and then I went to Ohio State at the Computer Graphics Research Group for a while, and then I went on to Pixar. And I really got away from my art until the 2020s when the blockchain came along, and I started rewriting, rediscovering all these old algorithms and turning them into NFTs. So this is a kind of a collection of my NFTs that are both on FXHash and other platforms. Starting out simple, using Victor Vasarely sort of as an influence, the upper right corner being the first one that I did. It's just called Square Dot Composition, and the one below it, kind of the second one. Getting my feet wet again, writing code and algorithms was sort of like riding a bike. You get off a bike, you know, and then 10 years later you can get back on it and you still don't know how to do it. So a lot of this stuff percolated in my head. We can go scroll slowly down here and I'll pick out a few pieces to tell you about. This next piece with the hexagons was a response to a Herbert Franke piece where he did squares, rectangles. And Herbert Franke was a big influence in my life. He wrote a book called Computer Art, Computer Graphics, which was the original term for generative art. I met him back in the 70s, and he encouraged me, all us computer artists at the time, people who were starting to use this new tool, the computer, and of course, the artists started using it. We were also spread out all over the place that occasionally we got together at a conference or a book. Herbert Franke's book was published in 1971. And that's where I discovered other people like me were doing computer art. So here you see, this was done for Herbert Franke's symposium. And it's actually at Karen Voss Galleries has one of these. All right, so let's get off of that one. But this is a simple one. All right, where'd my art go?
Apologies for that. Sorry.
Luke, come back to me. we're just kind of winging this fireside chat. I'm just still going through a brief introduction here. Pretty soon I'm going to just open it up and answer your questions. So we're progressing from plotter art now into NFTs. And it turns out that I wrote about 100 NFTs published on FXHash. And we sold them, in the beginning, we were selling a lot of things for like a couple Tezos a piece. But it allowed me to explore new ideas, evaluate some of my processes. The piece next to that piece we just looked at is an algorithm called the ambiguity of limits based on Zeno's paradox, where you start having the size of a tile as it approaches a limit. And if it turns out you never get there, that's the paradox. If you move half the distance to a wall each step, then you never get there because there's always a half a space that you can move into, but it gets pretty tight. Some more Vasarely pieces on the right, experimenting with some new algorithms, phyllotaxis, the algorithm behind in nature, the way the seeds are distributed in a sunflower. Again, going back to a plotter occasionally, this is a vortex made out of lines. So remember, I was originally a plotter drawing artist, and the algorithms I learned and developed then, I started applying to this new medium. And my medium, instead of becoming a mainframe and a plotter, all of a sudden became my desktop computer using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So these tools are amazing to me. All of a sudden I could do things in color, I could do shapes, I could do animation, but I needed to do a few static pieces to get my skills back. So as we go through this list, there's this one piece I want to just a little bit higher, this red piece, swirly piece. I actually contacted my old friend that I went to graduate school with and found him through his wife's Facebook page. He was living in Traverse City, Michigan after working 37 years for Bell Laboratory. And he and I hooked up together again, and we started collaborating. And that's one of the big joys in my life, finding an old friend and doing some work. So he would, I would have an idea. He would come back to me with some code. I'd integrate it. The colorful piece in the middle was sort of based on Herbert Franke's oscillograms, but we did it in color. Again, experimenting with some simple pieces. Yes, this is... And you can see what Luke's doing. He's actually, this is an NFT piece, so every refresh will give you a new image. So, you're just looking at, and it's quite dynamic and quite interesting. I mean, I love this piece. So this was back in 2023, 2024, experimenting with using the same old algorithms in a different way. All right, let's continue down there a little bit. So we'll just scan to the bottom of this. This piece coming up right here is line composition 1 and 2. I'm going to use that to create a Kelp environment in a few minutes because I'm working with a mathematician. Heard of Conway's Game of Life? Well, Conway was a mathematician, so here's some tiles based on Conway algorithm. This is line composition 2. I'm at the mercy of whatever Luke chooses to show you. So why don't you do a couple iterations of that? Oh, you're not? Okay. So you can see again how it varies with, swapping in different sets of random parameters. So, I fell in love with the medium again. And I'm at a point in my life where I'm retired. I have a lot of time on my hand. COVID gave me a lot of time on my hand. So I reinvented myself and I rediscovered myself and reinvented my medium. All right. So these are just a collection of things. They're all available on FXHash, or that's where they originally posted. I don't know what's going to happen to that website anymore, but this is where I started. Some of these are very representational, like the mermaids on the, if you've ever been on a cruise at night, you see the moon setting and you can see mermaids popping up in the water. This squiggle on the other side, on the right side, is kind of based on an electrocardiogram. I had to have a stent put in my heart, and I kept looking at the monitor. So this is based on, staying in the hospital. The places you get inspiration for these things are weird. All right, let's just keep rolling down the screen there. So again, this is just a collection of NFTs that over 4 years. Oh, this is an interesting one. Chris, we found Ken Knowlton's manuscript on the Mini Explorer language, and Mini Explorer was developed at Bell Labs, and Chris worked at Bell Labs, so we thought we'd resurrect it. He wrote this whole Explorer language in JavaScript, and we started producing original works based on that language. Lillian Schwartz and other people worked with Ken Knowlton and Bell Labs, John Whitney Jr. and other people. The artists and engineers started collaborating together. But this language is very limited. You'll only get 4 colors, and you have to create a tile and manipulate it. So it's very restrictive, but we were able to recreate it and do several works using Mini Explorer. Again, there's a Vasarely influence. Optical art is a big thing to do. Well, I can clearly see which one Luke likes to see. This one kind of was inspired by a Star Trek movie, Voyager. This is Voyager, when it finally came back to life. Anyway, so that's a tessellated surface, again influenced by Vasarely, bulges and dents, where you have forces pushing through the tessellation. He did a bunch of pieces like this. A little play on cyberpunk. This little cyberpunk guy was sold for some incredible amount of money, like $23 million. So I kind of made him a little bit of data and started manipulating him in my own way. This is kind of an homage to that craziness. Just some weird, this is all kind of interesting, weird stuff. There's a piece, a lot of us old artists are dying, Vera Molnar, so I did a kind of an homage piece to her. Scroll up a little bit, Luke, right there. Those are Vera's favorite colors. I did a show in 1980, Ukrainian Institute of Modern Art, and several artists contributed to that. Vera Molnar was one. That was in the beginning when there were just a few of us doing art. Ken Knowlton was in this show. You can find out about Art In, Art Out on my website. I have a lot of historical data there. And I'm trying to create my website as a repository for stuff that I've experienced over my life. And then finally, at the bottom, I don't know where we've gone here. Oh, this is the Art In, Art Out show. So I don't think we have time to really talk about that. That might be another fireside chat. So finally, Luke, let's go back to the one in the corner here, the red one down on the bottom, and click on this. I did a lot of static pieces. That one right there. Yeah. Can you select it, please? Can you
Sorry, once again, which one?
The red one in the lower right corner. That one. So I started experimenting with starting to animate these pieces. After you do 100 pieces, you get pretty good at coding. And with Chris's help, we started putting some of these things in a loop and vary them. But this piece is called Blobs. We're going to end with the latest version of it, where I took this 2-dimensional stuff and I keep recycling it. And actually, if you hit like an A, it'll change it from symmetrical to, there it is, asymmetrical. So again, getting back to the medium, getting proficient at it, learning the tool, what it can do, moving in new directions. This was sort of the period from 2020 till about a year ago. And I worked for almost 9 years at Pixar. And I wanted to start telling stories with my art, and I wanted to, create pieces that had some meaning, although, you can put whatever meaning you want into this. All right, so now we're just going to flip ahead to the latest in, I discovered AI, and I don't know if Luke can bring up the amoeba piece. So we started, Luke, or are you there? There, this piece, Amoeba World. I was working with Chris, and then he got snowed in, or he got distracted. He went into a different direction in his life. Run Amoeba World if you can. But we were working on creating our own worlds, and we had experiment with cellular automata and life cycles, Conway's Game of Life, for example. Things live and die based on rules. So this is a world that consists of amoebas, and the black little particles in there are food. They eat the food and grow, and when they get enough food, they propagate. All right, and they start overtaking the world. But we had to introduce some things to make the environment balance. So these little spermatozoa-looking creatures will kill the amoeba when they come into contact with it. So there's good and evil forces in the world. And, this is all written in code. We got hung up trying to do it ourselves. So this is where I turned to AI. I just started describing this world to Gemini Canvas, and it became a collaboration, not with Chris anymore, but with the AI. So this was exciting for me. Here I'm actually telling the story. It's the circle of life, and it's very limited, but it's kind of funny. You can just watch it. It goes on and on. It's a fascinating piece. And, because I'm an artist, it's kind of, mitosis is right. How do you represent mitosis? So, these little guys spin and split when they get enough food. And what's happening here is the bad guys are taking over the world. All right, so let's go on to some other algorithmic art. Can you put something else up there, Luke? What happens? He gets fascinated by them, and I have to call him back to life here. What are we looking at? Oh, this is Boyd World. And Boyd World is, I like to work, I did a lot of 3D. I taught descriptive geometry. I was at a computer graphics research group when they were doing the beginnings of three-dimensional animation. So now I discovered with the help of AI, I could start working in 3D. So I created this world called Boyd World that is sort of a planet, and it has these forces moving around on it. But I'm using a little higher order algorithms now. Like these are what they call murmurations. Okay, a murmuration is when you see a flock of birds in the sky and they don't run into each other. So with the help of AI, I'm able to go beyond my limited capabilities and implementation of these scientific principles by just saying, okay, I want to move these little forces around in a certain way. And I created the phylotaxic kinds of areas, the spiral shapes for land and for clouds. And there's actually a little Milky Way behind this. So now with my experience making a lot of generative art, I'm moving in this direction of 3D. And I love 3D. I did it in college. I did it at Computer Graphics Research Group. I went to Pixar when they started making 3D photorealistic rendering software, but I never got to make my own art. Okay, now remember the last piece with the swirls that I was talking about, the blobs. So I actually used the AI to create three-dimensional blobs. this is called Bioluminescent Blobs. And not only did I make these blobs in 3D, I used the algorithm that from my protozoa that created a cilia, these little hair-like structures. So I told the AI to put these cilia on the surface of the blob, and it moves around. And then because my girlfriend is a diver and she would tell me stories of diving in these bioluminescent environments, I created this bioluminescent environment. And there's always 4 blobs up there. They're color matched. And the closer they get together, the more they glow. So there is actually an interaction to these things. So my pieces require the viewer now to find the story. You got to find the story in the piece. It's not always obvious and it's not always immediate, but I'm able to do pieces now that are not only an extension of my own generative art, but also kind of have these built-in stories in them. And what Luke's doing is in my prototypes, I use some orbit controls. So I'm using WebGL, I'm using 3D.js, and I'm using orbit controls. And the AI basically said, oh, if you want to do this, let's implement these controls. And you'll see a control bar in there where I can generate stills, what we call wallpaper from these pieces. I can pause it, and I can, if you go down to, I can create, and I can record animation at standard video resolution for any number of seconds. So I build this functionality into my art because who knows how I want to use it. All right, so we're going to move on to like another piece here, our latest piece. Let's do Tumbleweeds next, and then we'll end with Luke, are you listening? Tumbleweeds next, and then we'll end with the bull kelp one. Hello, Luke.
1 second, sorry, Dr. Bill. I'm it.
See, he's so fascinated by that art tonight.
Dr. Bill, while we're waiting, what are the little squares? They're the shiny squares that were.
Okay, that's just particulate matter, little glowing organisms in the fluid that the blobs live in. It just shows the kind of a current. When you're diving and you see particles going by in the water, so the blobs needed an environment, and to enhance their environment, I added a particle system just like that and made the particles glow a bit. So, and it turns out that the color scheme, if you were to redo it, it's a triad color scheme. So the particles and the 2 pairs are distributed along color wheels. So there's a lot of interesting, weird stuff in here. I don't know where.
Well, you said this is the diving, but it almost looks like cosmos as well.
Well, it could be outer. It could be anywhere. It's up to you. This piece is actually, I was playing around with fractals, 2D, and then I wanted to create a 3D fractal. So I came up with this idea of creating a tumbleweed. And I lived in California for a while. I've been in the desert. My kids live in Nevada. And there's all these stark environments. If you do a refresh on this, Luke, you'll see a completely different kind of environment. There, see, now they've got mountains in the back. So I created an environment where the wind is blowing, and you can tell by looking at the wires on top of the pole. So I modeled wind gusts. I created ripply sand. I created this whole environment. And then in this environment, I set these tumbleweeds into motion using another algorithm that describes gusty wind. And if you watch this long enough, remember I said you have to watch my art to figure out the story. there's actually little sandstorms that blow in and out, and the wind, comes and goes. So this is, am I modeling nature here? Is this, and remember in the beginning I said, people told me that art comes from nature. Well, I've always, because I'm an artist and I was trained as a traditional artist, I know about nature, and I always look to nature for inspiration, but I don't think anybody has written an algorithmic version of tumbleweeds in a desert landscape. I'm willing to bet you can't find this. So it's just original and it's unique and it's fun to watch. I mean, and it's very typical of what it's like out in the middle of nowhere. And you can change nowhere by just recycling. All right, so the last piece I'm going to talk about is, and this is a new work, we haven't published it anywhere. We're looking for a place to publish these because, making art is one thing, distributing it is another. So that's a big issue that we can talk about. I'm looking for, an opportunity to distribute these works, and, brick and mortar, I don't know, is the answer. NFTs, I don't know anymore if that's the answer, but there's some answer out there. There's some gallery that might be interested in working with us to distribute these works. All right, finally, Luke, you ready? Let's do the last piece we're going to talk about, the latest piece. It's called Bull Kelp, and it's based on creating another world. And this is a story, and it takes a while for the story to develop. Bull Kelp. I lived in California. I've been to the Monterey Bay Museum, and off the museum there's a kelp forest. So remember that line composition drawing? That's how this one started out, drawing lines, and then drawing lines in 3Ds. And then what did that remind me of? And then doing some research. And originally it was like, I am a diver. I have dove a few times, but like being underwater and looking up at the sun. So the story here is we start pretty near the surface, and bull kelp have a foot in the ground, and they grow these long tubes, and they float on the top of the surface. Those little balls, there's a name for them, hold air and hold the structure up at the top. And they're typically found off the coast of places like Vancouver, where the water moves pretty quickly and dynamically. So if we let this piece run, okay, so now we have like the sunlight coming in and illuminating part of the kelp underwater. These are called God's rays. So there's holes in the cloud shooting down sunlight, lighting up part of this environment. And then we're actually going to take a journey. We're going to go in a spiral fashion down to the bottom as a diver might, exploring this environment. And then we're going to spiral back up. We've got 30 minutes of air in our tank. So we're going to explore this kelp forest. So, I mean, to me, you've seen a lot of generative art, algorithmic art. I think my stuff's different because, I want to create these interesting environments. I want the viewer to have an experience in these environments. I want it to suggest nature, not necessarily replicate nature. I mean, I've got a bunch of little cleaner fish zooming around, but if you look carefully, they're just little paper airplanes. That's not important. It's the movement that's important. So as we get deeper in the water, it changes color. Everything becomes more blue. And then on the bottom, you'll start seeing the base of these plants. So this is your experience with my art. It's like, sit down, get into it, let your mind go. Sounds like an old song. and just enjoy the ride. So we'll let this one, we'll get down to the bottom, and then, we'll pretty much end my portion of the chat, and we can open it up to questions if there's any question. So now you're starting to see the bottom. The bottom is, kind of rocky, and you can see the base of the kelp. And if you look close enough, there's some sea urchins and starfish down there. So this is new and this is unique, and this is the direction that I find myself going in these days. I'm always looking for new ideas. I like to find the algorithm and then kind of construct my art around an algorithm, because I, have a mathematical background as an engineer, and I just love discovering algorithms and trying to implement them. But the AI helps me with that. I mean, I couldn't do this on my own. That's the point, I guess I want to end it. I really couldn't do this on my own. And I'm trying to find, collaborate with the machine as if it were a partner. Sometimes it wrestles with me and it wants to go in its own direction. But just like in any collaboration, you have to evaluate it. I get impatient with it when it doesn't want to do what I want, but eventually it pays off. Now, this piece might have taken 3 weeks to do from beginning to end. So I don't know, it's quite a time commitment, but I hope that when you look at this, that you'll agree it was worth the effort. So that's my brief and wonderful story about my journey and my alt basal presentation. So I would hope there's somebody out there listening to this. And if you have any questions, my crew will queue those up for me and I'll try to give you an answer. All right. Where do we go from here, Stas?
Yeah, this is a great presentation. I love how deep the ocean goes, so to speak.
Yeah, it goes about 35 meters.
The kelp piece is quite something. I guess you showed it before, but I didn't quite fathom the depth. But now, yeah, no, it's amazing. And like you said, this is unpublished new work. It's wonderful for me to see the evolution, because obviously I've seen your plotter art, and then later on your 2D NFT, the blockchain, the evolution of the algorithms, and then further evolution into 3D with the help of AI. So it's quite amazing. The journey that you've traversed here is admirable. Yeah, so I guess while we're waiting for maybe some questions to come in, I think it might be good to mention what we're currently trying to do also by way of Patreon as a place for capturing and preserving your legacy.
Yeah, we kind of run our course with NFTs and trying to figure out how to market this stuff. So we're trying to we created a Dr. Bill Gen Art OG Patreon page, and we have these talks every week, and they get recorded, and then my crew goes through whatever we talked about and tries to pull some ideas out. We make little posts, social media posts. We have it's a repository. It works in conjunction with my website, drbillkalamjic.com. But we have wallpaper here. We have collection of articles where you can come. If you subscribe, you get free. You can download artwork of these pieces. There's when people talk about me or discover old things that I was part of, for example, the Computer Genesis Vision of the 70s catalog that I recently found, a show in 1977. I actually had 2 copies, so I sent one off to Catherine Mason, and she just did a big post of it on Twitter. And I don't know what's going on here. Are you a human?
I am. My bad. Sorry.
I don't know. We don't know if you're a human anymore around here. So these are like funny things you can see. Like here's a picture of me in the archive of a 6-second video of what I looked like in when I was at Michigan State University. There's my personal computer in the background. It's a IBM 1800. But I had a roommate that was a film student, so we found a 5-second clip of me in front of the computer, and we stuck it up there. We already talked about bioluminescent blobs. So in addition, you can, if you like any of my art, you can download wallpaper for a laptop, a desktop, a tablet, or a phone. I mean, just by subscribing, you get access to all that. Funny little stories about why do I still need to make art? I mean, I'm an older man, and I ask these questions. I think making art certainly keeps me alive and vital at this point in my life. But we all answer these questions. We talk about weird topics that I remember from the past, like the architecture machine experiment at MIT. A lot of things happened in my life that I was fortunate to be of or near that are pretty remarkable. A couple of years ago, I was invited to do a talk at the symposium in Berlin. Herbert Franke's widow hosted this symposium on generative art, and I was one of the speakers. So I put up that talk as well as the deck and notes from that talk. So any historian or anybody that wants to see what it's to put together a presentation, there's some weird old stuff in here. That's I don't know where that came from. That's my personal computer from 1974, the IBM 8, and there's the key punch that I use to punch cards. So I mean, that's the journey that I've been on. I made computer art for a long time. I took a break, and now I started making it again. And I think it's been very fulfilling for me. So I'm sharing my journey with all of you. This is an example of where I took an old piece and I just threw it in the AI and I said, can you interpret it? And I wanted to do this. So it comes back with the weirdest stuff. I mess with it. Why not? Any tool, people make tools for one reason, artists use them for a completely different reason. So that's how I use AI. I tell stories. Creative Computing Magazine. I mean, really, in the beginning, there were just a few of us. And, we should talk about the 1980 show that I did in Chicago, because it brought together a good portion of the people who were doing it at the time. Generative art is like a big tree. And it has a beginning, like George Nees and Frieder Nake and Herbert Franke, but it started growing and branching out. So I'm part of the trunk of that tree. It just kept growing. My branch went off to the side, and then somehow it started growing again with generative art. The blockchain really got me back in the saddle. So, things were happening. I'd like to think of, the idea that I am a historian and I am a practitioner. So that makes me kind of unique.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The 80s show would be a great topic for one of our next chats. I know that's a big chunk of early work and big artists of the era that you've brought together and exhibited at the time. probably one of the first computer
so
art
I'm
shows.
curious. I'm curious. Is there anybody out there? Anybody out there?
There are people out there.
All right.
We just don't see the comments.
They're too shy.
But no, I think there's
Well,
what I see here. Can you hear me, guys? Dr. Bill,
Yes,
can you
sir.
hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, we'll just keep doing this. I mean, we've
No,
been at
there's
it.
like 87 viewers as the X
Good.
or StreamYard shows.
Well, welcome
So-
you all.
Yeah. Well, I think one other thing I wanted to mention about Patreon is that there's a 3-tier way to participate in that, and one of them is the collector's circle. For someone who is a collector like me, you'll get exclusive work once in a while and signed prints and things like that. But it's all there on the page. Yeah, we should post the link to Patreon into X, which I will do. Okay, so yeah, no, I think this is good. Yeah, I think one of the next ones will do that. What is it called? Art in
and art out.
show from 1980 that you've curated and exhibited, right? Was
Yeah.
at the Ukrainian Modern Art Institute, or I think I'm misrepresenting the name.
It's the Ukrainian Institute of Modern Art.
Close enough. So, yeah, that will be one of the next ones, but we'll have many more. And so I just want to say thank you, Dr. Bill. Thank you, Luke, for facilitating this discussion. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to listen. You can always comment post factum, and it'll be good to get feedback on how this went, what else we can talk about, how we
Right,
can
and
improve.
Send us your ideas.
Send us your ideas, and
I
we'll
can
do
talk
more of
about
this. Yeah, for sure. We'll do more of this in the future. And whether or not this format is the best also remains to be seen using this live broadcast on X. So we'll see. We can go back to spaces, just audio, but I think this visual one is because we're talking about art, it's good to put things on the screen. So, okay, well, I think we can wrap. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for coming.
We'll do this again.
Thank you. Cheers.